Hey Neppers, it's me, Wild Neptune. Today, we're going over both Abigail and last piece Karin. Before that though, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, all the good stuff. Now, let's get into the video. And here we go. Abigail, fire warrior, the youngest of the Blood Rose family, a sweet and kind-hearted vampire. If you don't know, she is Melissa's sister, Emoto, apparently. So, again, fire warrior, you see her stats here. Health, very high. Speed, very high for a warrior. Good defense. Now she has no critical hit chance or damage imprints. Not imprints, like innately, right? She has a crit chance imprint, and that's notable because she wants crit chance because she is primarily a bruiser type character, and Smilegate wants you to spend money on this unit, right? No, like givers like sis crit chance whatever here. No crit chance for free for you. No, you gotta get dupes of this thing. So kind of annoying there. Definitely more of a whale unit in terms of optimization. Now, she does also have an ER release, which I think can be useful in certain compositions she might want to be used in. Anyway, let's go now into her skills, and let's look here and find the first skill here, which is the third one. We're gonna look at skill 3, Secret Guarded. So, after dispelling all buffs from the enemy, so full strip, attacks with a field of bloody thorns, inflicting injuries. So, single target here. Damage dealt decreases proportion to the caster's max health scaling, notable, she has very high base health. The severity of injuries increases proportional to the damage dealt, up to 25% each time the skill is used. And you see here, she has one cooldown here, so for 4, and then the rest for damage. So an injury unit, obviously gonna be very good against those high HP scalers. 25% is a pretty big amount actually, and with injury set on top of that, you get what I think like 35% in total on one attack, which is very, very large, I might add. This thing like almost instantly cripples a lot of HP scaling units right off the bat here. I just think overall a strong skill that's going to be useful against several types of units like a Ravi, a Lencia, LRK, and the likes. So let's go here now to a skill 2, Blood Banquet. At the start of the turn, curses. Curse is simply a debuff where the unit that is cursed will take damage when another unit takes single target damage. The enemy with the highest attack for 1 turn. When the ally in the back row, except for the caster, receives lethal damage, consumes 30% of the caster's current HP. So current is notable because it means that she can be at low health and so proc this, so it's not max, it is current. To grant immortality, that can't be damaged, and vampirism, that is a 30% lifesteal, to the target for 1 turn, and can only be activated once every 4 with the cooldown reduction turns. And this effect does not stat with other passes of the same name. So, this is a pretty nifty ability here, it's unique. We haven't seen anything like this so far in the game yet. The question here is, what kind of application is this going to have? So let's look at it against Cleave and against Aggro, and then slower comps too. So against Cleave, this might be okay. The problem is, right now, a lot of Cleave's teams, they have ways to strip buffs pretty easily, get unbuffable up here, and sober and things like that. So things like BBK and the likes have become much less popular in anti-Cleave these days. Now, against other types of Cleave, maybe, right? There's some Cleaves that just can't deal with something like this. Now, against Aggro, that doesn't always have dedicated, like strippers, stuff like that. If you have something in the back row that has some semblance of ER to maybe do something like resist, maybe like a Handguy S2, you can be in, pretty, like, nice shape here overall. Of course, you have to be able to dish out enough damage back in order to capitalize on this, but something you might want to consider. And in longer matches where this might proc more than once, that's also not the worst thing, especially when you have that added sustain possibility here. Now, of course, because of her speed and because of this ability here, there is potential for her to be used in a cleave team herself. Because this happens at the start of the turn automatically and it curses something, just imagine this, you curse something, right? And then you do a lot of single target damage to something else and you kill the thing that you cursed. Without hitting it at all. That is something that might happen. And on top of that, this passive gives a lot of added survivability to cleave teams that otherwise don't really have a lot of mitigation or ways to protect itself from being reversed. So, unfortunately, that window is open for the skill 2 here. Now, do I think this is going to be the best way to cleave? Probably not. But the fact that it is something that they can use in the toolbox possibly is kind of annoying. Now let's go here to the skill 1, Ambush. Attacks the enemy with bloodied wings and increases combat radius of the caster by 15%. When used on the caster's turn, has a 35% chance, and that's the max because there's all damage here, to activate Might as an extra effect. Damage dealt increases proportional to the caster's max health, and Might increases CR of all allies by 15%, and Soul Brave with 10 souls to have it activated 100% of the time. Notable, this has no cooldown, so you can get RNG lucky on this every single time. And yeah, so CR push on a S1 with only 10 souls for a 100% chance is actually a pretty nutso ability, in my opinion. Again, this even falls more into the fact that, hey, she could be a potential cleave unit because a lot of cleave units, they like having their souls, and a lot of the times getting this 15% is enough to cut by a lot of anti-cleavers that might want to go before her. So, very dangerous, I think, in the hands of a fast unit. Now, on one hand, you can say that, you know what, this unit can be built as an aggressive one, or it's more of a supportive one, and that's good design. But what I would say to that is that we have tons of units now that are good for aggression, and not as many that are just not, recently. So I would say that maybe they should have cut back on stuff like this and just leave the tankier players something to play with, themselves, right? So, now the artifact here, Golden Rose. If you didn't think this was a whale character before, now I'm going to read this to you. I'll just read the max here. When attacking, if the caster's health is 50% or more, increase damage dealt by 16%. And when health is 50% or less, recovers 30% of damage dealt. So, it's basically a Sigurd's and a portrait, or, you're basically a Tonfa, pull into one artifact here, depending on how much health you have, which is pretty insane. Now, it's not as good as either of them, obviously, but together, it makes it, nuts. So the lifesteal isn't as much as the Sigurd's. However, it is notable that this doesn't care what kind of scaling you have. So Sigurd's is notably not good on HP scalers, or non-attack scalers for that matter. Besides maybe an exception or two. But this one here, HP scaling, extra damage, yeah, push that out here. And I'm below that health threshold here. Oh, you know what? I'm gonna recover some of this massive health pool I have back. And what is nice here is that this is not a percentage like the proc artifact, so it will still work at 15, just not as effectively at max, but because of the nature of this artifact, you probably want to get as many copies as you can get a hand of if you can afford it. Also really talk about last piece Karin here. She's a 4-star light ML that's coming up in the next rotation here. If you're considering her or in the 5-star, the only really 5-star with pulling in the next rotation is Last Rider Crow, who is a meta-defining unit. So if you're trying to, decide where your mystics want to go, I go for him. However, she looks like she could be a nifty unit overall. So stats here, remember she's a 4-star, so her base stats will be lower in comparison to other 5-star units, but pretty good here. Very high speed at 126, crit chance imprint, which is very nice, especially for a 4-star unit, as you don't have to pull, on a ban or anything, or get really lucky. Hopefully you have dupes of normal Karin or BBK lying around. I don't. I just looked. So unfortunately for me, I will have to hopefully pull a few when I'm going for, say, Abigail later on. But there is that, and let's look at now her skills here. So skill 3 is Blade Art Infinite Sword. Becomes 1 with the sword. Dispelling 2 debuffs on the caster and grant increased attack and phantom sword to the caster for 3 turns. A notable, this is a 4-turn cooldown after a 5-turn, after the Mola here. Grants an extra turn. So this by itself will put it to 2 turns because of the extra turn. And when defeating the enemy, when granted Phantom Sword changes into Neo Phantom Sword and decreases all cooldowns of the caster by 1 turn. Phantom Sword, when attacking, if the target is a hero, no damage sharing effects take place. So this means no Aureus, no damage share, stuff like that. Unaffected by any effects related to buffs. And Neo Phantom Sword, all the same things as regular Phantom Sword, except that damage increases proportional to the caster's maxed health, and also dispelled after attacking. So what happens here, you hit a squishy target with this, you kill it, right? And then you have this Neo Phantom Sword buff in order to follow up on the tank. So that's how that's going to be used. So Phantom Strike. 4-turn cooldown. No decrease here. Remember though, if you do kill when you have Phantom Sword, this does decrease the cooldown here. So attack the enemy before granting stealth and a barrier to the caster for 3 turns. Which is a long time. Not 2 turns, 3 turns. Hit chance increases by 50% when using this skill. Notable that this counteracts most evasion in the game, obviously before like artifacts, stuff like that. Damage dealt increases proportional to the caster's max speed, and barrier strength increases proportional to the caster's attack. 2 things that you want on this unit. So obviously focus now as an anti-evasion type unit here. And her skill 1 is Vacuum Strike. So it is a simple 10% with 5% more here. So 15 in total. CR when using this ability. And because of the fact that she only has her S2 and this one other skill as her damage abilities, if you do use her quite a bit, you probably want to have this maxed out also. A 10 soul burn for increased damage. Now, I feel like the real argument here over on Last Piece Karin is she better or worse than Zahak at dealing with evasion? And I think there are pros and cons to both units. Obviously, Zahak is better against, say, AoE that can't quite strip off his invincibility if you get it off. And Karin is better against single targets that can't knock her out of that stealth that she might get. So she could be a potential like Shadow Squad type unit. Like back in the day, people ran things like, a Holy Spectre, like, a Guiding Light unit, stuff like that, and just have one other unit where the enemy focused on but couldn't quite kill. So maybe something like that might come back. Now, her base speed is pretty high, and that is a factor here. I don't think it's unreasonable to expect even modestly geared accounts in terms of the speed department to get to like 290, 295, and 300 speed on some decent damage here. Now, Zahak does have the bonus crit chance at 50% bonus, plus he also gets the hit chance on both of his abilities, which makes him a little easier to gear than Karin. So consider that also. Also, worth noting is that Zahawk also supports another ally, which could be, useful in a lot of fights here. Now, I know some accounts will just be able to use both of these units here, and they'll be, okay, you know what? I can use both of them. You had to deal with both Zahawk and Karin, and guess what? Your evasion, you're basically screwed. So there is that, right? Now, can most accounts do this? No, right? No, probably not. So again, it does kind of annoy me that a unit that's being used to counter a very aggressive type unit like Aiden, herself is also another aggressive unit that is not always easy for slower players to utilize. Oh, that's just me. Luckily, I do have gear that I can use on her if I get lucky enough to pull her. Like any, I think, 4-star though, you might kind of wait and see a couple of days on this one, especially because she's a mystic hero, and the track record on 4-star units has not been very good. Let's just say here, we all know how Furious turned out. But at first glance, I do think that she will at least be somewhat valuable tech against evasion, as we don't really have a lot of units that deal with that effectively right now. So, my final verdict here. For Abigail, great potential PvP, specifically RTA type unit. Can be very good against those high HP units, potentially be used in even aggressive comps in order to deal with a 2-for-1 type deal with that curse, in a similar way that Melissa tried to work in aggressive teams, but now with some added protection that you otherwise would not have in those compositions. Also, last piece, Karin, obviously anti-evasion. We do already have one with Zahawk, but redundancy is always nice to have. I've said for a while now, I feel like units like Aiden needed another counter or so to really feel like, Smilegate was trying to do something about them. Now, the fact that both of the units, again, really require somewhat similar gear to be utilized really kind of sucks, because if they could work in the same vein but use different types of gear, I definitely feel like that would be a much better way to go about it. But it is what it is. I do feel like Abigail is going to be a strong unit, and let's be Karin, I also think she'll be a strong unit as long as units like Aiden are still considered to be meta. Anyway, I'm Wild Neptune. It's been a good one. Nep out.